All right, we're back with episode 6 of the Empire Mentality, and we've gotten a lot of positive feedback on the past episodes, but the one that we got the most DMs about and messages and the most reshares about was the last episode 5 that I did with our dad up north. And if you haven't listened to that one, pause this one right now, go back to listen to episode 5, and then come back to us. So because we're going to dive into
this one won't make sense.
Yeah, we're going to dive into some things that kind of reflect on and expand on some of the things that our dad talked about, and just kind of go a little bit more in depth in those. And his big messages were about self-love, forgiveness, and confidence. So kind of forgiving himself was kind of a big portion of it for things that he'd done in his past or that he didn't like about himself. And when I dive into that being the first step, and maybe there's some things after that you need to do rather than just forgiving yourself. So when you heard Dad mention forgiveness and self-love and confidence, all those things, what was your reactions?
Well, my reaction, I love the podcast, and I thought it was great because, and so I wasn't surprised in that aspect because he had always taught us to be confident. He'd always taught us to, I think in an indirect way, to love ourselves and forgive ourselves and things of that nature. And I think that's the first step, right? If you don't love yourself, if you're not confident in yourself, no one else will. But I think because he had coached us and because so many other people had him as a coach, and he was also somebody who had incredibly high standards as a coach and somebody who was, intense, as a coach. He definitely wouldn't have been described as a quiet guy, while he was coaching. I don't think that people were expecting self-love, to be self-love and forgiveness and some of those other things to be the main point of topic. So I think he surprised a lot of people, but I think he surprised them in a really good way.
Yeah, I think so too. And that's what I was posting about it before the podcast, that it's not going to be what you expect, because people know that he's this fiery guy. He's kind of this bigger guy. Kind of if you never met him and you just saw him walking, he's intimidating.
Still intimidating.
Yeah, even if you haven't met him. So that definitely wasn't the message that people were expecting, but it was the right one, and I think a lot of people got a lot out of it. So, but we were talking about it earlier that forgiving yourself and self-love and things like that are all good, but just saying those things aren't enough. So what are some other things that I
think the other reason why it threw a lot of people off, or why and I think a lot of people just think of that as the opposite of discipline, or the opposite of grinding, or the opposite of action. And it's not the opposite, it's just the first step. And they're probably wondering, how does this guy who, is baling hay for 12 hours a day and, driving at the age of 14 and all those stories he told at the beginning, how is this guy making, self-love work for him? Well, I think that's how, he made self-love work for him. If you're going to forgive yourself and if you're going to love yourself, you've got to give yourself something, to love. So he was somebody who already had amazing habits. He's somebody who already had amazing rituals. He was somebody who already had amazing discipline. And there's an old saying, or not an old saying, it was actually, I shouldn't say an old saying, it was a quote from Emily Frisella. So we're avid followers of Andy Frisella and First Forum on Instagram. But his wife, Emily Frisella, had a post a few weeks back that I wrote down that says, what destroys you, you must destroy, right? And so for him, he already had amazing habits. He already had amazing rituals. He already had structure and discipline and all of these other things. But the one thing that was destroying him or holding him back were mistakes that he had made in the past, and looking back at them and not forgiving himself, for those things. And so the reason why I personally believe, forgiveness catapulted him into a whole nother stratosphere of success in relationships and coaching in his career was because of the fact that he was always somebody who was willing to take massive action, right? And so that probably catapulted him quicker than other people. But for the people that listen to that podcast and think that they're just going to say, okay, I forgive me, and I love myself now, and that things are going to be different, I think they really missed his message or misconstrued his message, or are just going to end up really, really disappointed. It's not like confession. If you were, were raised Catholic like that, it's not like confession where you go do your first confession with the priest and you're like, I pushed my brother off my bike, and, and he says,
10 Hail Marys,
10 Hail Marys, and you're all forgiven. You can still come into heaven, even though you gave your brother a bloody knee. So it's not as simple as just I forgive myself. There's got to be massive action taken after the fact. And the reason why it worked so well for him is he's somebody who I've never seen go to work without a clean pressed shirt. He's somebody who I've never seen even on a weekend. It doesn't matter how many stogies or bourbons have been drank, he's up before 9 every single time, making everybody else breakfast. So the reason why self-love works for somebody that I think everybody thinks is such a rugged, tough guy is because of the actions he's willing to take. But forgiveness and self-love won't mean anything without those actions.
Yeah, and how confident you got to be able to be seen as this rugged, this top level executive, and be able to talk about self-love, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he even mentioned it to me after we had listened back to it that he's like, damn it, I wish I would have mentioned the things that I did after I forgave myself and accepted who I was, but realized that I had to get better. He said, I started reading a lot more. I started taking walks to clear my head. I started focusing on my body a lot more. So he was already talking about that massive action that he didn't mention in there, and he was kicking himself for it. But
I mean, that's fine. I mean, that's why we're covering. I mean, it would have also made it a 5-hour podcast as well. So that's I think that's fine.
Yeah. So what are those? How can someone, if someone's looking at themselves right now and saying, I accept myself, I self-love, I forgive myself. What is those massive action steps after that first step of forgiving yourself, I guess?
Well, I think, and really what I think all of that boils down to is what people don't understand is that the relationship that you have with yourself is the most important relationship that there is. And a lot of people, I think, will flip that and be like, oh, well, I'm just so selfless. I feel really good about putting others first all the time. And for me, what I've learned through running a business, and what I've learned through, being a teammate, and what I've learned through being a leader is that you have to put yourself first. You have to be selfish to be selfless, right? And if you don't have, and the reason for that is if you don't have something in abundance, you can't give it to anyone else, right? So if you don't have love for yourself in abundance, you're never going to be able to, you don't have any love to give. If you don't even have enough for yourself, how are you going to give it to somebody else, right? Somebody needs you to loan them $20, you only got 10. Sorry, buddy, I can't do it, right? And so if you've got yourself in this deep, dark place where you're not loving yourself and you're telling yourself it's because you're loving everyone else properly, it's a lie. That's not true, right? If you had an abundance of love for yourself, the person that you could be for all of these other people that are really important to you is tenfold what you could be if you're giving them, all of the love that you have. And it's funny, you see so many people so quick to point out, and you've been there, you've probably had, a buddy who's dated a girl that sucked, or girls out there, you've had, a girlfriend who, was dating this guy that was terrible and, beat them down and, told her that she was gonna, told her that he was going to be someplace when he wasn't, or, a girl that said she was going to do something or she wasn't, or maybe somebody that's cheated on you, or maybe somebody that's wronged you, or that hasn't done, just hasn't done right, by you. You would always tell them, you need to break up with that person. You need to dump that douchebag. You don't need to be with that bitch anymore, or whatever the case may be, right? So we're so quick to identify, and everybody can blatantly see when you shouldn't be in a relationship with somebody anymore and how toxic that person is. Well, the same holds true for that relationship that you have with yourself. I think the biggest reason why relationships with a significant other fail are just broken promises to each other. Well, the biggest reason why you're going to give up on yourself, or maybe not like yourself, or maybe not love yourself, is if you keep breaking promises to yourself, right? If you tell yourself over and over and over again, hey, I'm going to be at the gym at this time every single day, and you don't go, right? You're eventually not going to trust yourself, okay? And you're eventually going to get really frustrated with yourself. You're not going to like yourself. You're telling yourself over and over and over again, you're going to start waking up at a certain time, or you're going to be different at work. You're going to be different, in that type of relationship. You're you're of course you're going to get just like you get frustrated with that other person and get to the point of lashing out at that person or breaking up with that person. You're going to get to that same place with yourself if you can't keep promises to yourself. So I think loving yourself and having confidence in yourself simply comes from doing what you say you're going to do, on a daily basis.
Yeah. And keeping promises to yourself that you don't go to the gym that day. You're at the end of the day, like, shit, I didn't go to the fucking gym. Like, I told myself I was going to, next day, I didn't do it again.
Right.
What do you got to do to change the next day instead of just saying, God, I used to do this where I would just call myself, you're a fucking pussy, go to the gym.
Right.
Yeah. So, and that's taking it too far. You got to be able to forgive yourself and say, that was a tough day. Like, I didn't do what I wanted to today.
Right.
Tomorrow's going to be better. But then tomorrow comes and you don't do it. So what are the next steps for someone that they know that they need to take that massive action, but they don't know what to do next. They can't flip that switch. What do they got to do next?
It's taking inventory, a little bit. And it's also but before you take inventory, you've got to understand it's simply just having the conversation, kind of that conversation that we just had, right? That relationship that you're going to have, that you would have with a girl. If you want that relationship to go well, you've got to do right, by that girl, right? Mm-hmm. And so, if you tell her you're going to do something and be a certain place, you've got to do that thing and you've got to be, at that certain place, at that time. Well, when you're trying to become the more fit version of you, when you're trying to become the more rich version of you, when you're trying to become the more, friendly, version of you, or the person that has better relationships, or the more, likable leader at work, you've got to keep those promises to yourself. The people get in a really, really dark place. Everyone's had those nasty breakups before, right? With the, where you just let, one person's breaking promises to another, and then, the other person's breaking promises to that person, that nasty, just drag on, blow up, fucking.
We all know what you're talking about. Yeah.
She's calling you 2 weeks later. By the way, I think there's still I found a hoodie doing laundry. I'll mail it back to you, you son of a bitch. Where's your address, right?
That's that Dane Cook staying up and he's like, my CDs are still in his truck. Yeah. All right, I need to go get them.
Yeah. That type of relationship. Well, the reason why people get so frustrated and I think get so, angry with themselves is they're trying to create, if you're trying to become the more fit version of you, and I think that's just the easiest example that I can, create. Eventually, if you're promising yourself, I'm gonna meet fit David. It's a relationship with that next level of you. It's the relationship with the next version of you. So when you're telling yourself, hey, I'm gonna go to the gym. I'm gonna go to the gym. I'm gonna go to the gym. Eventually, fit David isn't gonna believe fat David anymore. Fit Matt isn't gonna believe fat Matt. Anymore. He's gonna, man, this guy ain't gonna fucking, go to the gym. And, you start breaking promises to yourself over that fitter version, of yourself over and over and over and over again. Eventually, you're gonna get so upset, at the fact that you weren't keeping those promises to yourself that you're gonna lash out at yourself, right? You're gonna lash out at you and basically be like, you know what, I don't believe you anymore. I don't want to do, and then you give up. That's when people quit. And I think that's when people give up and, they're like, I'm just not going to do this anymore. I'm big boned, I'm this. And that's where the excuses, come from. And so everybody's like, oh, quit making excuses, quit making excuses, quit making excuses. Right. Well, when you think about a relationship, it starts with broken promises, and then it's, oh, she was just a bitch, or oh, she nagged me, or oh, she did this, or oh, she did that, or oh, she did all of these other things, right? Well, it started with her breaking promises to you, or it started with him breaking promises to you. But if you're that person that's hurting you, if you're that person that really wants a fit body, right? If you're that person that really would like to advance in their career more, if you're that person that's really looking to accomplish a goal, and you know the steps necessary to accomplish that goal, and you say, hey, I'm going to do this at this time, and you don't do it, right? And you start breaking those promises to yourself, eventually you're just going to break up with the thought of being fit David, or you're going to break up with the thought of becoming fit Matt, or you're going to break up with the thought of becoming, a better leader. You're going to break up with that thought, and then you're just going to move to the next thing. But here's the thing about that, and we talked about it in the first podcast, is the way that you do one thing is the way that you do everything, right? If you were cheating on Stacy, you're going to cheat on Susie, right? And so, if you couldn't keep promises to fit David, when it comes to being more wealthy David, you're not going to be able to do that either. When it comes to being, if you couldn't keep promises to the fit version of yourself, okay, you're not going to be able to keep promises to the version of you that becomes a better leader, at work. And so first, I think it's understanding that, keeping promises to yourself, is how you get those things in abundance, and is how, you're never going to have good relationships with other people if you don't have a good relationship, with yourself. But anyone who you think about that you have a bad relationship with, it's either because you broke a promise to them or they broke a promise to you.
Why do you think that we'll hold other people to that standard where they broke a promise to us and we said, fuck them, I'm done with them, or they're over and over do it. We eventually get to that point. Why do you think that we are okay with breaking promises to ourselves when we hold someone else to a very high standard? Why don't we hold ourselves to that standard?
Well, we do. It's just subconscious, right? Like I said, we break up with that person, right? Like you break up with the thought of fit you, right? And so you get fed up. You don't realize you're doing it, right? But you break up with fit you. You break up with you just start settling, right? And so that person that really attractive girl that had high expectations and high standards, right? If you couldn't keep those promises, to her, it ended up becoming a toxic relationship. And so some people have a toxic relationship with the fit version of themselves, right? Some people have a toxic relationship with the more kind version of themselves. Some people have a toxic relationship with the neat version of themselves. They're going to start keeping their workspace or their house or their clean, the cleanliness or whatever, it is, or insert goal. They develop a toxic relationship through broken promises of trying to accomplish and become that next version of themselves, and they quit. Right? Yeah. It's just a breakup. It's just a breakup with the fit version of you. It's just a breakup with the Dean's List version of you. It's just a breakup with the 4.0 version of you. Eventually, you developed so many bad habits. You broke so many promises to yourself that you just say, fuck it. The Dean's List was never important to me. Yeah. Fuck it. I never loved you anyway. You know what I'm saying? Right? Yeah. It's just that's all it is. Right? And so you just don't realize you're doing it. Right? You're not able to, most people aren't able to kind of have that, I guess, out of body experience that I'm talking about right now, where they're thinking about that next version of themselves. But if you want that next version of yourself to ever meet you, right, and not leave, right, and for you to not get fed up with it, you got to keep promises to yourself.
Yeah. So we've all had that just nasty breakup, that nasty breakup. But how do you make sure you don't have that nasty breakup with yourself? How can you said it's subconscious. How can you bring that to realization, and how can you notice those things before you have to get to that breakup point?
Well, first it's taking inventory, right? You've got to take inventory. And it was something that I learned, and it's a great read, and a lot of people think it's weird and hokey. And for me, for a long time, I fought reading this book because the people that I would hear talk about this book really made it seem mystical and magical, and they were talking about affirmations. And to be honest, after reading the book, they were just explaining it really bad. They were like, yeah, if you just, shout positivity and chant things and, do positive affirmations, you'll just start attracting things like a magnet, right? And we're going to get into later why affirmations are a little dangerous for people that don't actually understand them. But it was in the law of, I read the book, or just listened to the audio book and read the law of attraction, reread it again. I read it a few years ago, and then I read it again just to kind of, just because I like the book. It's a really good book. And it talked about, taking inventory, and that your brain and your heart knows what you really, really want, right? And the reason why positive affirmations work the only way positive affirmations work is if they're honest, right? And so you need to take inventory. To not get to that place, you need to take inventory on the things that you really want, or inventory on the things that you feel you do really, really well, so that you can continue to keep doing those things. You don't want to, gain momentum in one area of your life to lose momentum in the other area of your life. But you've got to make a list of things that you're really happy with in your life and that you really love, about your life, right now. So if you're somebody who's really fit and you just work to get your dream body and you love the way that you look, yeah, it's okay to tell yourself that, but when you look yourself in the mirror and you're doing this positive affirmation, you're saying, hey, I love the body that I have right now. Your brain knows if that's bullshit. Okay. Your brain and your heart have a huge, huge bullshit meter, on there. And so people who don't want to end up in a really, really dark place, one, they've got to take inventory. They've got to have the list of things that they love about themselves and that they think are strengths and that they think are amazing. But you've also got to make a list on the other side of things that you need to work on, or things that are destroying you. Like Dad said, his was that there were things he was looking back on in his life that he had never forgiven himself for, and that was destroying him. So he had to forgive himself to set himself free. For some people, it could be that, they're rude to people at work, right? And, they're cold to people at work. For some people, it could be their body, right? And they could look at themselves in the mirror and say, I love my body right now. Positive affirmation, baby. But if they don't like the love handles that they have, I love my love handles. Love is in the word. Love, 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 love being chubby. If truly in their heart and in their head, they want to be thin, or they want them, their pants to fit a different way or their shirt to fit a different way, your brain and your heart's going to tell you whether that's true or not. You can't lie to you can't trick yourself.
It's just going to be that feeling I know I was lying to myself. It's just a feeling.
You can't trick yourself out, of those things. So I think through affirmations, you have to take inventory, right? And so let's say that you looked at yourself and said, wow, I love the way my body looks right now. And your brain and your heart go, bullshit. Mm-hmm. You hate, those love handles. You wish you were thinner. You wish you were ripped. You've always wanted abs, right? That's a lie. That's not true. Okay. So that that's something that you need to improve on, right? So you start going to the gym. Now, if you want to make that affirmation true, right, you can say, I love, and you want to make it positive, right? Because you don't need negativity. No one needs negativity in their life. And you want to say, hey, I love the fact that today I took a step closer to my ideal body. Okay, I truly believe in my heart, if I keep doing this every single day, someday I will achieve, the ideal body, that I want. I love that I'm on the right path. Okay, that's a positive affirmation that is true, right? But only what is true and what is not. And so, I think the way to not go down, that path is honesty. First it's honesty, right? It's transparency with yourself on what you love about yourself and what you don't love about yourself, okay? And then next, it's massive action. And this is another thing that I think people get really, really confused about. You can hate one thing about yourself, right? And still love yourself as a whole, right? So for me, we talked about it on the very first episode, of the podcast. Business was kicking ass, had a good relationship, just bought a new puppy. I'm up at the lake house living life, and I saw a picture of myself and I was like, holy shit, who's that fat guy holding my dog, right? And I was like, it was me, right? And I despised the way that I look. That didn't mean I hated everything about myself. In fact, I was in a place where I probably loved almost every other aspect of my life, from the guys that I had working for me, from the city I was living in, to the relationships that I had, with my family members, to the relationship that I had with the girl that I was dating at the time, the new puppy, right? Can't have a bad relationship with that. Like everything, it was so much happiness. But I was like, man, I really, really let that aspect slide, right? Mm-hmm. And so when I was looking at when I took inventory, I was like, wow, I really love all of these other things. I really like the way all of these other things are going. Am I content with them all? Do I want to still be in that place 10 years from now? No. Okay. But I really, really love the place that I'm at right now in all of those places. The one thing I hate, okay, is how I looked in that bathing suit, holding my fucking dog in that picture. I started running bleachers, the very next day. I told myself, I was like, man, I've got to start running stairs. I was like, the one thing that always had me looking good during football season, when I was looking my best, coaches had us running stairs. I was like, that was always the hardest thing. It was the thing I hated the most, but it was always the thing that had me looking the most shredded, through my midsection, and had my cuts showing the most. So I started running stairs, every single day. And it was amazing how immediately I started feeling better about myself. And while I was running the stairs, I felt like absolute shit, right? But my confidence level and my love for myself when I was done, running the stairs, my self-love, my confidence meter, my swagger meter was at an all-time high after I ran there's this giant like flight of stairs in Grand Rapids that a ton of people run. And I would run them every single day, whether it was hot, whether it was raining, whether it was ever. And it was that promise that I kept to myself, that I was feeling great about myself before I even had the body that I have now, that I got from doing those things. It's not the end result that's going to make you feel amazing about what you're doing. It's the promises that you keep to yourself on the way they're going to make you feel great, about those things. So, taking
that inventory.
Yeah.
If you wouldn't have noticed it and taken that inventory, then what's next? Because you were always fit, you were in shape.
Yeah.
And that ended up going down and you didn't even notice it.
Yeah.
So what's next? Your business starts going down, your relationship with your girlfriend starts going down. Yeah. If you're not taking that inventory every so often and looking yourself in the mirror, it's a slippery fucking slope.
Just like at a restaurant, man. You're not taking inventory. We'd like the surf and turp. Sorry, sir. It turns out we're out of lobster. You look like a jackass, right? And that's how I felt. When I looked at that picture, I was like, holy shit. This is why it's so important to be taking inventory on yourself, because if I hadn't done that, I wasn't taking inventory at the time, right? It was a picture someone posted to Facebook, right? And so I got really, really lucky. But ever since then, I really started. It taught me, to take inventory, and reading that book taught me to take inventory as well. So yeah, I think that's the next step, right? If you need to forgive yourself for something, forgive yourself, but if you want to love yourself for some things, love yourself. But then also for the things that you maybe don't love yourself for maybe some of the things that, you think might be lacking, forgiveness and just loving them when you don't actually love them, are going to put you in a really, really bad, dark, negative place, I think.
Forgiving yourself, taking inventory, those are the first steps.
Yeah.
And Tim Grover put out a tweet a little while ago. It's how the phrase that showing up is half the battle, and how he said it was bullshit. It's the first step to the battle. Yeah. But just because you want to lose 40 pounds, just walking into the gym, showing up, doesn't mean you lost 20.
No.
It's not half the battle. So same with this. Forgive yourself, take inventory. Those are 0.5% of it. What's next then? Action, right?
Yeah.
What kind of, and that's what, like we said, our dad was talking about, that he started reading, he started walking to clear his head, he started working out more, he started dieting. So how important is that next massive action then?
Well, it's super important, but it's also different for everybody, right? And so I see these affirmations, and it's always with body image, right? And I think for people who really do, if somebody's, a little thicker and in their mind, they dig that.
Yeah.
And that's honest, then that's great, right? And people shouldn't be shaming those things, at all, right? But it's just, for me, it's just about honesty. And I think the next thing that you need to take inventory, of, first you got to handle you first, right? You've got to have, certain things in abundance in order to give them to other people. But another thing that I'm really, really big on, as well as massive action, that I'm really big on and taking inventory with, is a saying that got said to me really when I was early in owning my own business, just through a networking event. Somebody said it, and it gets said a lot, but that you're the average of the 5 people that you hang around with the most. And I think that's super, super important. I think a lot of people, just like they confuse affirmations and just like they confuse positive talk, is they confuse good people, or a good average of 5 people, just with people that are nice to them, right? And the example that I use all the time, or that immediately pops into my head, have you ever seen a morbidly obese dog?
Yes, the first thing that popped in my head was a fat cat, though, because it's usually a
normally
cat.
Cats, right? But it's nothing more because I like dogs more than cats. There's nothing more heartbreaking to me than when I see, somebody who's, and maybe it's an older person, right? Their animals are always really, really obese, probably just because they don't have the energy to exercise it or whatever else. But when you see that really, really obese dog, that person's being nice to it, right? They're not being mean to it. They're not beating it. They're not yelling at it. They're not doing anything. They're not saying no to anything, right? They're giving it exactly what it wants. Like you said earlier, they paw at the bowl. They fill it with more food. They feed it a ton of people food. When they're eating ice cream, they give it ice cream. All of this.
It's like Adam Sandler and That's My Boy when he's
he's
feeding them.
That's My Boy. And
That's My Boy. when he gives him the tattoo when he's
Oh yeah. Well, it's also in Big Daddy, right?
Oh,
what
yeah,
do you want
same
your
thing,
name to be? Or what do you want for lunch? 30 packets
Right,
of
that's it,
ketchup,
yeah.
right? And he's just letting the kid do, whatever he wants, right? And so when you were growing up, why didn't your parents let you do whatever you want? You would have become a really unhealthy kid, So when you're, why don't you let your dog, do whatever it wants? Why don't you let it jump on people? Why don't you let it hump people's legs? Why don't you let it just do whatever it wants? Why don't you let it just be a kid? Why don't you just let it be a dog? Because it's not fucking good for it, right?
And it doesn't know what's good for him.
Yeah, it doesn't know, what's good for him, okay? But when you reach a level of, when you become an adult, okay, you've got to reach a level of maturity where you're surrounding yourself with good friends. Some people just never grow up, right? They surround themselves with people they either surround themselves with people that are lesser than them, and by lesser than them, I don't mean that to sound mean, but they surround themselves, if they're tired of trying to get fit, they just hang out with fatter people, right? If they, to feel intelligent, they just hang out with people who are less smart, than them. But if you're not hanging out with people that level you up, you're never going to achieve those goals, and you're never going to accomplish the things that you want to accomplish, right? So just hang out with people that are really nice to you, okay, doesn't mean that they're being good to you. Like that old lady that has the dog whose stomach is dragging on the fucking ground, right? She's being nice to it, okay? She's also killing it.
Not looking out for its best interest.
She's not looking out, she's not looking out for its best interest, right? The parents who, let their kids drink Mountain Dew every single day and stay up late and, don't have a normal bedtime, right? They're being nice to their kid, right? But they're not setting their kid up for success, right? The difference when you're an adult is you have the choice to choose those 5 people that are around you, right? And so the example that I use all the time is the girl who's trying to lose weight, right? And she's like, oh my gosh, I should really eat right, but I'm feeling like a fat ass today. I'm going to eat this pint of Ben and Jerry's.
The Bachelor's on.
Yeah, The Bachelor's on. And her friend, right, who maybe she's confided those goals in is, girl, if you do, I will, right? We deserve it, right? And then they just can't. They don't just cancel out the past workout that they did. They cancel out the past 10 workouts, that they did. But that's being a good friend, being fat asses together, right? And it's like, no, that's not being a good friend.
I'm being supportive.
Yeah, I'm being supportive, right? Well, that's why we're all human, right? And we're all gonna have moments like that, okay? But you need to be hanging out with people that are gonna be like, no, no, bro. Like when you're like, oh man, I really, really want my abs, but I really feel like having. You want to polish this 30 rack?
Yeah, you want to go to the bar?
Like, like, no, bro. Like, no, bro. Like, we're gonna look like a bunch of fat asses. We do that, dude. We'll cook something, grab a chicken breast, grab some rice, do whatever. Come on, dude. We're doing so good. Let's not do that, right?
Dude, we all have those friends where you're like, man, but a pizza sounds really good right now. And they're tempting you.
Yeah, and they just want you to do it. Misery loves company, right? Okay, and I always flip it on its head. We'll play devil's advocate, right? And so it sounds like, we're saying only hang out with people that are going to be brutally honest with you and beat you up, right? No, because there's people, I've seen toxic, friendship relationships where, you haven't confided goals in that person, and if that person's just calling you a fat ass, that person's just being an asshole to you, that person's just, mocking your weight or, putting you down. You don't want those people in your life either, right? But you want people that you feel comfortable enough confiding your goals in, confiding your aspirations in, and having them be there to say, hey man, hey, when you're getting close to, the edge, be like, hey, don't jump, right? You don't need that ice cream. You don't need this. You don't need those things. And so I think that's really, really, really important. It's not confusing people that are nice with you as a true support system. A support system is something that's going to move you forward towards your aspirations. A support system isn't somebody who's going to enable you, right? Yeah. And, they talk about that. I mean, when they talk about addictions like AA and stuff like that, they tell you, one of the rules they tell you, stay away from people who are going to, that person's an enabler. You have to stay away from that person. If that person comes around, you call me. They have a sponsor that they can literally call to stay away from somebody who's an enabler or who will give them that drug or give them that drink of alcohol, right? And so are the 5 people that you're hanging around with the most enablers? Are they enabling your bad habits? Are they making you feel okay about your bad habits? Or are they somebody that's lifting you up? And that's tough to do because it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to be the fattest person in the group of friends. It's uncomfortable to be the least smart out of the group of friends, or it's uncomfortable, to be around, to be maybe the only single person, in that group of friends, if having a relationship is something that's meaningful to you. But if you need to hang out with other people that have what you want. And that takes somebody that's secure with themselves. And again, it's why it's so important to keep promises to yourself. If you can't keep promises to yourself, you're never going to feel confident enough to hang out with people that are greater than you. And that was something for me when I started, I found myself starting to become very disciplined and keep more promises to myself. We do these networking events in Dallas, Texas every single year, like 3 times a year. And the first one that I went to was super, super intimidating. But I got later in my career and it was something that I couldn't wait to go to. And there were people there that were so much, more successful than me and so much more advanced in their careers and doing so much better than I am even right now. But the reason why I'm actually excited to go is because of the confidence that I've been able to instill in myself through keeping promises to myself, through keeping inventory, and hanging out with people that I feel level me up.
People are going to say that I don't know anyone like that. I don't have close people to me that are that could level me up. And whether it's true or not, I bet there are. If you really took inventory of that, sure, there are people around. But we also talked about it in episode 2. I talked about it with Lisa, that you could have a conversation like that with one of your friends that maybe is someone that's maybe bringing you down or something like that. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're feeling the same way. Maybe like, man, if you share your goals with them, you finally get vulnerable with them and say, man, I want to lose 30 pounds.
Yeah.
And they're going to say, dude, I've been wanting to lose 30 pounds. Yeah. Maybe you can level each other up that way too. Mm-hmm. But then also, if you don't think that you have those people in your life, something that I did when I was just living on my own in Detroit, not a lot of people around, I just started following those people on social media. Ed Milet, Andy Frisella, Gary Vee, and just having my social media circle be all those positive people that are leveling me up and pushing me too. So, but I bet that those people are around you though.
Sure.
If you just look.
Yeah. And the other thing is that I hear a lot as well is, well, I don't want to cut that person out. The person that enables me the most
talk about it
is my mom. The person that enables me the most is my, dad, or the person that, all, these people in my life, I love them. They just aren't good for me. Just like the lady and the dog, right? She loves that fucking dog, right? But she's killing it, right? So it might be people that you really, really love in your life that just aren't good for your goals or your dreams or your aspirations or your health, but you want to be able to give back to them. And it goes back to abundance, right? And so it might take a little bit of time of hanging out with people that make you confident enough and make you love yourself enough to be able to love, your parents the right way, or to be able to love your siblings the right way, or be able to love your significant other, the right way. But it's just, you got to fix you first, right? And so if you really do, love those people that you hang around with the most, and you're like, oh my gosh, if I don't hang out with them, I love them the most. That's why I want to hang out with them the most.
My day ones.
Okay. Yeah. My day ones, right? You need, a lot of times, if you're going to want to give something to them, you're either going to want to give them love, time, money, attention, right? But hanging out with people that level you up are only going to allow you to give them more love. Hanging out with people that level you up it's only going to allow you to give them more money or more time or more affection, or only do nicer things, to them. Because a lot of people who have really big, lofty goals, those people are maybe people that are like the best for them are their why. Just like that dog that's super fat, it's living for that lady, right? That's being super nice to it and giving it a lot of love, right? But it's not giving it the things that it needs, right? And so when you're making that decision, right? And a lot of people are like, oh, but she loves that dog. I'm sure that dog doesn't mind being fat. Like, that dog's not going to live, as long as it's supposed to live. It's not going to reach its, I guess, full potential as a dog. That sounds corny, corny to say. But if you're going to be able to give those people that you really love everything that you want to be able to give them, okay, you've got to put yourself, it's on you to put yourself in a position to where you can have time, energy, love, affection, and abundance, or you won't have anything to give to them. I mean, just even if it was just from your physical well-being, if you're hanging out with people that aren't going to keep you in check on your diet, and don't get me wrong, here's the other thing, it's not their fucking responsibility to make you fit, right? But if you're hanging around with a bunch of drunk, if you're hanging around with 4 alcoholics, you're probably going to become the 5th, alcoholic, right? If you're hanging around with 4 really fit people, you're probably going to be the 5th person with 6-pack abs, right? And so when it comes, even if you just want to be able to give, if you're a dad or a mom and you want to be able to give your kids more energy, right? Taking a little extra time away from them to go to the gym, okay, and get a little bit more fit, or maybe not going out to dinner with them because you know they're going to eat like shit, okay? You being a more fit person is going to allow you to give them more energy. And love towards somebody, that's an energy, right? That's an enthusiasm. When someone's showing somebody love, they're showing them an enthusiasm, they're showing them passion, and that takes energy, right? And so sometimes you've got to step away from something, okay, to better yourself, to be able to more properly, inflict that on somebody else.
Yeah.
So, like I said earlier, being selfish to be selfless.
I think that's better advice than what most people you'll see on social media. Cut those toxic people out of your life.
Cut them out, bro.
Cut them out, bro.
Be a savage.
Yeah, just cut them out. They ain't doing nothing for you, dog. Yeah. Cut them out.
Yeah.
But you don't have to. It doesn't have to be that
so
dramatic. You know.
Yeah. They make it sound like a breakup.
Yeah.
Like you need to break up with. Some people might say, oh well, my parents don't they're really overweight, and that's why I'm really overweight. Mm-hmm. And like I said, weight's just a super easy example. Right. It's not an attack on anybody, but well, my parents are really overweight, and they always just make junk food, and they always want to eat fast food. They always want to eat, they always want to eat, McDonald's. So, if I'm going to be fit, no, you don't have to break up with your mom.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to be like, you're not my mom no more. Yeah. You're fat. That's not and people give that advice, all the time. You just when it's dinner time, you just don't be there, mm-hmm. right? Or go eat with somebody. Go order a salad with your buddy or something like that, or go over to their house and eat. Hey, I'm just going over to so and so's house for dinner. Mm-hmm. You don't need to make it this big dramatic spectacle, because the other thing is that when you attack these people or start blaming them, mm-hmm. right, they're definitely not going to be supportive of your goals. I'm fat because of you,
right? I know you're eating pizza tonight, but I'm gonna eat this salad.
Yeah, I listen to Matt and David's podcast, and they say I hang out with you. Don't go.
Those are not the DMs we want.
Don't go do that shit, right? So those are not the DMs I want. Yeah, I told my mom to fuck off, or I told my brother, he's a fat ass, so I'm not going to hang out with him anymore. No, that's not what mm-hmm. we're telling you to do, right? Just start making sure that the majority, if you want to be more fit, start making sure that the majority of your time is spent with fit people, right? And if the other friends that you have are out of weight and don't support, or aren't in shape and or overweight and don't support those things, then make other time for them. But if you want to be able to give them the energy, the laughter, the camaraderie that you want to, you're gonna have more energy in a fit place. I think.
Anyway. You want real life examples? Think of the pro athletes that keep their day ones around that are toxic. What's the documentary?
It's called Broke.
Broke. Yeah.
Broke. It's a 30 for 30.
Yeah.
And it's called Broke, or it's an E60 or 30 for 30. If you look it up, it's the circle that they had when they mm-hmm. entered the league. They'll get these $1 million contracts, $10 million contracts, $50 million contracts, and within 10 years they'll be broke because they bought all their day ones, mm-hmm. A Lambo,
right?
And didn't level up. And it's just the average of the 5 people that they had around the most, the 5 people they had around the most of them were leeches, right? Mm-hmm. And they all wanted a piece. And so and they had money in abundance, and it just goes to prove the other example, earlier, is that they had money in abundance, but they gave it to everybody else first. And they didn't have enough for themselves. Yeah. They didn't have enough of abundance of it. They gave it away too quick. Now they don't have any more. So, yeah.
That is the clearest example, I think, of the average of the 5 people around you, mm-hmm. for sure. So that's good. That's all good stuff. So just to wrap it up, that's the first couple steps is forgiving yourself and taking inventory. And that's only the first couple steps. After that, massive action and checking your circle to make sure that everything is in check. Yeah. And if you see something that you don't like, make a change.
Yeah. Well, and I would end it with, and I think the most important part of it is that you need to keep so many promises to yourself, and you need to have yourself in such a confident place, or a place of abundance. I think the main message of the podcast is just doing things that are going to have you in such a place of abundance, so that you're capable of doing things for others, whether that's experience. And that's kind of what we're doing on the podcast right now is, we're sharing people who have an abundance of experience in certain places so that they can share those experiences with other people and help change them, in that aspect. So I think having things in abundance is the first step. People want to give too quick, right? And I think that when you give too quick, and there's this old expression, it's not an old expression. It was an example that was used for me really early in the business. And it says, when a mama bear goes hunting, or when a wolf goes hunting, or when a lion goes hunting, who eats first, it or the babies? The mama bear eats first, right? She eats first, and she gives the leftovers to the babies. Because if she gave it all to the babies, okay, and she doesn't have the energy to go hunt again, they all die. Right. And so the biggest excuse that I hear with this is that, I just spread myself too thin. I give. And the honest to God truth is the people that only give when they don't really have anything to give, okay, they end up putting themselves in a place where not only they can't provide for themselves, but now they can't provide for those people either that they were giving to. And for that baby bear, right? So for those of you guys kind of like picture this, that baby bear that was like, hey, mom, like, get up, like that scene in The Lion King was like, Dad, get up, right? So that you guys can kind of envision it like, hey, like you're supposed to be feeding us. You're supposed to be doing these things. These people that are now dependent on you aren't going to be able to depend on you anymore because you couldn't depend on yourself, right? You got to eat first, right? Or at least enough to where you can go out there and hunt, for those other people. So yeah, when you think about that relationship with yourself and you're worried about people telling you that you're going to be selfish, or you're worried about people, saying that you've changed, or you're worried about people saying that like you're just doing all of those things because you like the way you look, you're doing all of those things because you want money, or you're doing all of these things because other stuff, or maybe you're somebody who was putting other people first too much. Remember that you've got to be able to put yourself first to be able to have enough to give to others, because eventually if you give and give and give, once your tank's on empty, okay, the ride's over. Right? Car can't go anymore. So all of the passengers that were there with you that you were providing for, right? If you didn't make sure that your tank was full, whether that was your love tank, your confidence tank, it doesn't matter what. Once that's gone, right? Those people are going to leave anyway. You have any love to give that person? You think that person's going to stick around, right? If that person needed you, if you're an adult, who needs to have enough money to, have their kids living in a good environment, you don't have any money, right? And that environment that they're in isn't a good environment anymore. Social service can come take those kids. It's not a safe living environment anymore. They're homeless, right? If you saw a homeless person with kids on the street, what do people do, right? They call, and then those kids, get taken away, right? You don't have any, you don't have enough money, to keep paying your car payment. What happens? It gets repoed, right? So those things, okay, you better have it in abundance, or these things that are dear to you, to be honest, they're going to get taken away.
Yeah. Now, bringing it full circle with Dad's message and him now having that all, everything, forgiving himself, getting that self-love figured out in his own head, has been able him to give in abundance back to us now, giving us that message just a month ago on the podcast, and having more conversations like that to help us learn. He gave us everything we needed when we were younger.
Put four kids through college. Now he's got one of the biggest houses on the lake. He's got the jet skis, he's got the boat, he's got all of those things, right? Yeah. But he had to love him, like as he said in his message, he had to love himself. First, he had to forgive himself, he had to love himself, and then he took action. He kept his same good habits, he kept his same good rituals, and look at the life that he was able to build, because of that. So, and
to continue to build and give us maybe new messages that we hadn't heard growing up before, kind of like the accepting yourself, self-love, stuff like that too. So
well, yeah, and you can take that back. I believe it was your senior year when there was like, you guys had like 3 valedictorians. Yeah. Right? 2 of the 3 valedictorians like spoke about him in their valedictorian, speech, because of how much he was able, to teach them. But do you think if he was a guy that wasn't confident in himself, or who didn't love himself, that they would have felt confident enough to talk about him or loved him back? No. Like, people, you can tell when somebody doesn't like themselves. They're the most unpleasant person to be around, right? Yeah. Yeah. So
I think we should wrap it up from there.
Yeah. I mean, I could go on.
I've got other things. I've got other things in my mind. You got lighthouse boat, or lighthouse tugboat in my mind.
Save that.
Stuff like
that.
We're saving it.
Episode.
That was a little teaser for the next couple. But all right, we're gonna wrap it up. That is, if you don't follow us on social media, follow us on Instagram. That's one that me and Matt are both most active on. So it's at the Empire Mentality and at Matt Ruhlman 1.
Yep, just at Matt Ruhlman 1. I'm never on Facebook. I'm never on I'm on LinkedIn a little bit, but I mean, that's,
yeah.
For the people that are listening to this, you're probably not on LinkedIn much. But yeah, if you want to get a hold of us, you want to talk to us, or obviously this is a super, super important topic, one that we got a ton of positive feedback, one through the last episode, and I'm sure we'll get more positive feedback on, the elaboration through this episode. But yeah, that's where you can get a hold of us at. That's the best place to get a hold of us at. Or if you want to call, I think after my first episode, I had somebody DM me and then text me and then call me. I think we talked and it was somebody that I knew that I'd met before, somebody that I had met through David. We probably talked on the phone for like an hour, afterwards. So don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to chat us up about it. As you can see, we love talking about it. So
yeah, I've got people that just find me on social media, on Instagram, that'll just shoot me a message. I don't be living out in California or Hawaii, wherever they're from. Yeah. And we'll just chat about a topic like this all the time. And I just tell them, dude, shoot me a message anytime. I love talking about this shit. So if you're listening, shoot us a message, share it with one friend that you think might need to hear it as well. So follow us at The Empire Mentality and at Matt Roman 1. And that's all we got. We're out.
Cool. See ya.